Hello YouTube, today we're going to be making GIZMO to go with my life-size Stripe Gremlin figure that I made a long time ago. I've wanted to make GIZMO for ages and I can't believe it's taken me this long to get around to actually doing it. Okay, so I've taken a block of wood, taken this little drill vise and I've made some holes in this base. Then I fed some of this 2mm aluminium wire into the holes, stuck it in with super glue, and then used the wire cutters to cut the right sort of lengths. This is basically just twisting the wire around itself. So here I did 3 holes and I made them go in at different angles so that makes it really particularly strong, and it means that they're not going to just pull out of the base. It kind of anchors them in place. Okay, then I did this loop for the body. Again, all is just wire twisted around itself. One for the head. And I did these supports for the tops of the ears. And they went all the way across and wrapped around the middle of the head. And then another pass over the top, just twisted to make it stronger. I start so many of my sculpts like this with a wire armature, even the life-size gremlin that I did. Obviously, the more wires you wrap around themselves, the stronger it gets. And it's also really nice because it's flexible at this stage. So if I decided I wanted GIZMO to be a bit taller, I could pull it upwards a little bit and bend it. Right, I decided to add more wires to add fingers. And then I did the same thing again to add some toes. And again, you can see how many more times I've wrapped wire around the legs. So his legs have become really nice and strong now and nice and firmly attached to the board. Usually my next step is to use aluminium foil to bulk out the main form of the creature. But in this case, I'd run out of aluminium foil. So I just used carrier bags stuffed full of more carrier bags. Here you can see my roll that is completely empty and devoid of aluminium foil. So I packed the carrier bags in quite firmly and then I wrapped the actual main carrier bag that's over the top of each ball over and sort of around itself to kind of keep it in place. And then I'm going to go over the whole thing with duct tape. Sometimes I use sellotape for this, but duct tape is even better. Yeah, because the duct tape is so wide, you don't have to do many passes to be able to cover the ball that is going to become his body and the ball that's going to become his head. The arms can be easily bulked out later, but the legs I want to be a bit more sturdy. So I decided to use some of that roll that was inside the aluminium foil. You can see here I just sawed some bits off using this Tamiya craft saw. Really useful, those saws. If you haven't got one, I definitely recommend you buying one. I think I picked mine up for about £11 or something. And you can see I just made a little cut down the middle there. So I can pull it apart and I can just slide it over the aluminium wire. Then I'm just going to add more duct tape and wrap it round and round and round the legs until they're nice and solid. I'm doing the same sort of thing with the arms, but I just stuffed a bit of padding in there first. So again, just some kind of rolled up bits of carrier bag just to give it some thickness, and then duct tape over the top. And you can see his form is really starting to come on at this stage. Obviously, he looks very basic and pretty awful, but don't worry about that. It's early days. You just have to go through this process and it gradually gets better and better. So this next stage is covering the whole lot with layers of kitchen paper and PVA glue. If you've been to this channel before, you know that I use this technique a lot. It really toughens it all up, makes it really strong. The kitchen paper is just any old kitchen paper, but the PVA glue has to be really strong PVA glue, like either super PVA or wood flooring PVA. I use something called Bondit Duo, which is wood flooring PVA. It's really, really tough. You will have noticed that he looked white a minute ago when I first put the PVA on, and now the PVA has almost dried, so you can see he's gone clear and you can see the black duct tape through it again. Right, this is just a ball of Milliput, and inside the ball was a ball of aluminium foil. So you just roll a ball of aluminium foil, cover it with Milliput, roll it in your hands until it's as round as you can get it. You can keep doing it as the milliput is setting, and then what you do is saw that in half again with that Tamiya craft saw, and that makes what looks like two eyes. And then I can put the eyelids over the top, and then I can start building up the face features like this. If you haven't used Milliput before, it's a two-part putty. You mix the two parts together in equal amounts and it starts to set. It sets rock hard in about 4 hours. This colour Milliput that I'm using is called Silver Grey, and I really love it. It's the one that kind of shows up the most details. It has become my favourite of all of the Milliput types. If I don't use this, I use standard Milliput a lot, and I really love that as well because that shows the detail really nicely as well. Okay, you can see at this stage that I haven't committed to an actual place that the ear is going to be set in yet. The wire is still loose just at the join, and that's okay because it means that I can position them exactly as I want them, and then I can add more Milliput later to set them in place. Okay, you can see I've made the hands with the little fingernails. That was good fun. I just use various sculpting tools, so things like little ball styluses and modeling tools that have got good sort of pointed or blade-like shapes to them. I've gone really quite rough with the milliput around his legs, but again, it's just to give an overall kind of sizing to the legs. And then I've done his feet. Same thing again, just sculpting the toenails. And you can see he's starting to come on. He looked a bit weird, but you've got to go through these stages where these things do look a bit weird until they get towards the finishing bit. Right, with the ears, you can see I've done like folds and sort of vein looking bits in the ears. That's worked quite well, adds a bit of texture. All of this ends up looking much better obviously once it's been painted, but even at this stage I'm thinking he's starting to look a bit more gizmo like, and I'm getting a bit excited about adding fur later. Okay, even though the body and the arms and legs and the head are still quite sort of rough looking, it doesn't matter. I was ready for the painting stage because the rest is all going to get covered with fur. So I just used flesh colour, which was made with yellow ochre mixed with a little bit of cadmium red and a bit of white. And that's given me that skin colour. You can see I've put it over his eyes as well. That's okay because I want to do his eyes really neatly and carefully later. I'll go over them with white at that stage. But for now, I just wanted to get these covered as quickly as possible because I guess I was really excited about getting on with the stage after this and then all the other stages. Right, I hope the camera has picked up this next stage. Basically what I've done is just make a lighter version of the flesh colour, and then I've dry brushed that over the top of all of the kind of skin areas. So you might just about be able to pick it up. You can see like it's a lighter colour of flesh like on the highest kind of places, and the darker flesh colour remains in all the deepest places. If you haven't done dry brushing before, you just take your brush with a bit of paint on it, rub it on a bit of kitchen paper until it's pretty much dry, and then you're just sort of dusting it over all of the high surfaces. So you can see here, for example, the toenails really kind of show up in the middle, whereas the edges of the toenails look really dark because they're like deep kind of edge to the toenail. Right, I also added some subtle pinkish tinges just to kind of the edges of the eyelids and that kind of thing, and the lips. And then I painted the whole lot with some PVA glue, apart from the centers of the eyes, because I'm going to be treating them separately. You can just about see the pink coming through the eyes there. There's a bit in the ears as well, a bit under his nose. And obviously as this PVA glue dries, because it dries pretty much clear, you'll see all of those colours coming through much more. You can see I did it around the edge of the fingernails and the toenails as well. By adding a coating of the PVA glue, it does a couple of things. It protects the paint, and that means if you're scraping up against a wall or something like that, the paint won't come off because it's protected by the tough glue. But also it gives it a slight glossy look. It's not too glossy, luckily, this, but it gives it just a little bit of glossiness, and I think that's going to look much more like the actual gizmo from the movie. Right, so remember the PVA glue, when you first put it on, it appears white, and then if you keep looking, it's just about to be dry. There you go, that's it, now it's dried. You can see the glossiness. I've painted the eyes white, that's my next stage, and I tried to get those as smooth as possible. I'm going to be using UV resin on the eyes later on, which will really help make them look really, really shiny, almost kind of wet looking, and much more like realistic eyes. But anyway, you can see what it's done. You can see where there's still a bit of glue that hasn't fully dried yet. It's still white, but it will end up looking like this other toe on the other side. So I'm really pleased with how he's looking at this point, but I want to get those eyes in because obviously the eyes make such a difference. Okay, thanks to the magic of editing, the eyes are now done. If only they were that quick to do in real life. It takes quite a long time to build up all of these patterns and things in the eyes, and there's a lot of blending. Blending, for example, the whites of the eye into the iris, the edge of the iris. You have to use like some subtle grey tones and things, and it's looking pretty good, but it looks quite sort of matte as well. They're not particularly shiny. That's because they haven't got the layer of UV resin over the top yet, so they don't have that nice glossy wet look. If you haven't used UV resin before, it's a bit like a thick, clear glue. You pour a bit into the center of the eye, and then you very carefully kind of brush it out towards the edges, and you'll see it goes from this look to this look. Do you see the difference? Like the eyes now look really wet, and they've got really bright kind of white highlights where the light's catching the eye, so they look much more realistic, and yeah, it just kind of brings him to life really. After you've poured your resin on and got it to the edges of the eyes and you're happy with where it is, you shine a UV torch on it and just hold it in place for maybe 4 or 5 minutes until it sets, and it sets really hard and it's like a sort of a glassy coating. Right, I went to a car boot sale and I bought a white fluffy teddy. I think I paid about £2 for it. And I bought a brown fluffy gorilla toy as well, because obviously we need white fur and we need brown fur. So I just cut out some bits and literally I can just stick those on with super glue, stick them in place. And what's really cool about GIZMO is the brown fur goes up against the white fur, so you can kind of get them to merge in together. This row along the edge of his chin, that's going to have some wispy bits added later as well, which will soften the look of that. At the moment it looks a little bit hard along that line. I've left gaps for where the brown's going to go, and then his arms I've left for now because he has brown at the shoulders and then he has white on the sort of lower parts of his arms near his wrists. You can see here I've tried to get all the fur to go in the direction that the fur should go in, i.e. downwards in this case, and I've done his legs, which was just a case of cutting out a couple of rectangles and then just super gluing them all the way around. I have some gaps at the back of the leg, and that's okay because I can cut out another couple of rectangles and just super glue those in place. The nice thing with using really long fur is it hides any of the seams and it all just kind of blends in seamlessly. If anything, proportion wise on this gizmo, I wanted him to look a little bit fatter, if anything, just because I remember the scene in Gremlins where Billy picks him up and he's kind of like holding him in his hands, and he just looks really cute and chubby. And that's what I want my gizmo to look like more than anything. Right, this is my brown gorilla being massacred. You can see here I dyed him with a little bit of red and orange dye just because he was just a bit too kind of pale grey brown, and I wanted to, yeah, strengthen the colour a little bit. But this is how I did it. I used, because he's 100% polyester, I used this stuff called RIT dye more, and that dye is polyester. Normal dyes will not dye polyester. Right, you can see this is him with all the brown fur stuck on and the extra bits of white fur. I also managed to buy some false eyelashes from the car boot sale. I paid 50p for 2 packs of false eyelashes. I thought that was pretty good going. And these ones seem to be just perfect for Gizmo. They add to that cuteness factor. I've also ended up painting the base a nice red colour, and I think that really kind of makes him pop. I think on a lot of like the Gremlins DVDs and things, when you see Gizmo, I think the text is quite often in red, or there are some parts of the DVD that are red, so it just seemed right to paint this red. I think it works really well. And also because Gremlins is a Christmas based thing, I think he wears a red hat at one point as well, so I think that's going to just look good if I ever give him a red hat as well. Right, I knew that I'd sculpted his mouth really carefully, but I knew that it didn't fully look like Gizmo until I got this fur on, because the fur just goes over the edges of the mouth and then suddenly it sort of becomes him. And as soon as I got this fur on, I was just like really pleased. I was like grinning to myself because I'd managed to capture what I was trying to capture, which was like the cuteness of Gizmo and also just the realistic sort of look of him. And I knew that he was going to just look amazing next to my full size gremlin, you know, like the stripe that I made a long time ago. He is probably my favourite of all of my sculpts so far, so this is just going to be a nice addition stood next to him. I like the little curves in the brown fur that just show off his little mogwai butt cheeks. I think they're really cute. So many times when I was making this, I just found myself going, Gizmo, or Mogwai, or even Billy. It was really just proof that I need to get out more. Anyway, I gave you a very quick glance at the beginning of this video of him stood next to my original life-size stripe figure that I made. Um, just to let you know, if you haven't seen the video of that one in the past, he's probably the creature that has taken me the longest to make, and he used so many packs of Milliput that I think he's ended up weighing about 3 stone. So you can see him here. He's a solid thing. I mean, he does have a wire armature in him, but apart from that, he's pretty solid Milliput. And it was, yeah, just doing all of the scales on him took forever because I wanted to match them as closely as I could to, you know, all of the scales that he's got in the movie. And yeah, pretty fiddly. But anyway, it's really nice having Gizmo next to him, and just having Gizmo all furry I think makes such a huge difference, like to his realistic kind of look. So yeah, I just think they look amazing together. I'm really happy that I've done this. And in an ideal world, I would make lots of other Gremlins from Gremlins 2, the new batch, and I would make lots more Mogwai as well and just fill the space with them. But they take so long to make that I might have a bit of a gap before I make another one. Obviously, these two are the most important of all of the Gremlins characters, but there are other gremlins that are really cool looking, and there are other mogwai that are really cool looking. So who knows in the future? Watch this space. Also, I just fairly recently made a life-size ET, so if you haven't seen that video, check that out, because he's another one where I don't know why I left it so long to do it, because in my creature room he looks really cool. He's one of the most iconic, easily recognizable movie characters of all time, and along with these two he looks amazing. Right, here's a Father Christmas hat that I managed to find at the car boot sale. The lady that sold it to me was a bit like, why are you buying a Father Christmas hat in the middle of summer? But I thought, that's going to be perfect for my gizmo. I'm sure I've got a pair of 3D glasses somewhere, but I couldn't find them. If I do, I'll probably put those with him too. Anyway, I'll show you your old friend Leon Creator next to them, just for a sense of scale. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit subscribe if you want to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.